Namaste teachers, welcome back. Welcome to the third session of class 9 and 10. Today I will be taking up nationalism in Europe as requested by some teachers. So we'll go through it again. It will help us to understand the lesson in a different perspective. Now, first, I will like to share with you the syllabus. What is the portion? What are the learning outcomes which the board wants us to understand when we are doing this lesson? So, as you are already aware, the course we have 20 marks is allotted for history, 20 marks for geography, 20 marks for economics, 20 marks for civics. Now, number of periods. India and contemporary world, we have 60 periods. I don't know how many of you give so many periods to all these, how board, because I think sometimes it's not possible also. Maybe for geography, we need some more because to make, and the number of chapters are more for geography also. But now that nothing has been deleted from 9 and 10, we will have a tough time. I don't know how we will finish the entire portion in one whole year. We will need extra classes also. So in rise of nationalism in Europe, there are a number of topics, subheadings, which are covered. Like first, it starts with the French Revolution. Now, children are aware of the French Revolution because already in class 9, they have done the French Revolution in detail. So French Revolution, when we teach them, we can just recap what has happened in 9 so that it becomes easier for them to understand. Then we have to make them understand the concept of nationalism. What is nationalism? That is love for the country. When we tell them about India also, they can relate to this very well. So nationalism idea, that is how the nation is formed, how different nation states were formed, before what they were, all this we have to give a background to them because it is sometimes difficult for children to relate with another country. But with their own country, if you give examples, they will easily understand. Then how the different countries came into being, Germany, Italy, Britain, how it came. Then visualizing the nation, how the nation was visualized. See, India is our nation, but when we think about India, what is the first thing which comes to our mind? We think of the flag. So when you visualize a nation, in those days when they were fighting for freedom struggle, that is in India also, for them, the image of Bharat Mata was very important. So they visualize the nation through Bharat Mata. Same way we visualize for every event, the flag of India is very, very important. Even now, any occasion, whether it's Republic Day or Independence Day, for us, nation means flag. So that we have to explain the idea about it. And finally, the last topic is nationalism and imperialism. Nationalism, we know, that is fighting for your own nation, forming your own nation. What is imperialism? When in the greed of increasing our own nation, our own area, we are taking other countries, conquering other countries. That is imperialism. So each thing we should explain. Now, what is the learning objective from this entire lesson? First, it enables the children to identify and comprehend. So they have to identify the forms of nationalism and understand also in which nationalism, the forms in which nationalism developed, along with the formation of nation states. So the idea of nation states, what is it? Why it was required in Europe in the post-1830 period. Next objective is to establish the relationship and bring out the difference between European nationalism and anti-colonial nationalisms. We were a colony of the British. When we fought for our nationalism, it was anti-colonial nationalism. But European nationalism was very, very different. They were fighting to form a nation state. Next, understand the way the idea of nationalism emerged and led to the formation of nation states in Europe and elsewhere. So all these objectives we will be covering in this topic. I'll just stop here and share the PPT also. Now, so rise of nationalism in Europe. This lesson is very, very interesting, but because a lot of countries are involved in this, when you're talking about Europe, Europe is a big continent, right? So there are a lot of countries there. So they have to understand each country, how it emerged as a nation. Now the chapter starts with this beautiful painting made by Frederick Sorey, print on democratic and social republics. Now, when you show this picture to the children, first, let them say what can they see in the picture. Let them come up with their own interpretation. So what are the important things we can see in the picture? See, we are seeing one statue, very, very important. This is the Statue of Liberty, right? Then we are seeing a trail of people, a line of people holding different flags which belong to different countries. Then in the foreground means front. This is the background. This is the foreground. Opposite of background is foreground. In the foreground, we can see certain things like you can make out crowns and certain other images are there. Now this line also, we can see one flag, one nation or one group of people have crossed the Statue of Liberty. Others are still on the way. They are coming, approaching it. And on top, and on top, you can see, this is not visible here. I was trying to see if I can make it visible. 1 minute. No, I can't do. Now in top, you all must be aware what is on top actually. We have angels, we have angels and Christ. So that also is denoting something. So this picture, we have to explain to the children in detail. Why? You can have MCQ from this picture, you have 3 marks answer, 4 marks answer, anything can come from this. So let us be very, very clear to the children what this picture means. Now, this picture was made in 1848 by a French artist, Frederick Sorey. He prepared a series of 4 prints. And this picture shows his dream, his vision of what the world should be. So this picture is showing a world made up of democratic and social republics, what he visualized the world to be. The utopian world, something which is not existing, but he visualized that world should look like this. So that this is his image of the world. Now the picture shows people of Europe and America marching in a long train. So they are walking, they are marching in a long train. So people of Europe and America here, and offering homage or paying their respect to the Statue of Liberty. So they are coming in a long train and walking towards the Statue of Liberty and paying homage or respect to the Statue of Liberty as they pass it. Now, what does Statue of Liberty symbolize? It stands for freedom or liberty. And on the ground in front, what can we see? We can see the fallen symbols of absolute government. Absolute government means monarchy. So when we think of monarchy, king, we associate with certain symbols like crown. Very easily they can make out. So this picture is showing us about how absolute monarchy has fallen, the symbols have fallen on the ground. It means they want an end to the absolute monarchy or government. So this picture, when they are seeing, please make them understand what it shows. And on top, you have the angels and Jesus Christ offering or showering their blessing to these people. So what basically it is trying to show that people are walking. Yes, ma'am?
Fraternity. No, just that.
Yes, it is trying to show, ma'am. Shanti, ma'am, can you explain what is the picture trying to show? What is the concept behind the picture?
Behind the picture, they want liberalism. They want freedom. They want to become nation states. And the Jesus Christ angels, the saints, they are all blessing them to get it. This is the visual, this is the thing, idea of,
Frederick Sorry. So this
and they want to give an end to the monarchy rule.
Monarchy, right. Very
They want to end monarchy rule.
Monarchy. So the countries which have passed already, Switzerland has crossed Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, they have nation states.
They
already
have got their freedom already. And others are trying to approach this symbol, liberty. Statue of Liberty shows that once you approach it and cross it means you have got your freedom. You have formed nation states. So all the countries of Europe and America are walking towards it to achieve symbol. It is very symbolic that the Frederick Shore is showing through this painting. He visualized this painting. That time they were not nation states, but his visualizing, this was his image, that something like this will happen and they will all get their freedom, right? So this painting shows his imagination of a utopian. Utopian means something which is not there. Like today, see, around 40 years back, did anybody think that we will press a button and call anybody we want? So that was a vision then, which we have achieved now. So Frederick Sore's vision in 1848 was that all the countries should get freedom and form their own nation states. So this was his image. So this is what a painting we should first explain to the children to get an idea about nationalism. What is the idea of nationalism in Europe? Now, first we start with French Revolution. So already last year in class 9, they have studied about French Revolution. So French Revolution of 1789 popularized the idea of nationalism in Europe for the first time. They got the idea about nationalism, the feeling of nationalism and why they should fight for it. The French Revolution proclaimed that people are the nation. It introduced the idea of la patrie. Whenever you're fighting for freedom, they have to associate with some image, some symbol. Like how when Indians fought, they had this idea of Bharat Mata in mind. Same way, the French, they introduced the ideas of la patrie, that is fatherland, and les citoyens, that is the citizen. And all citizens were guaranteed equal right. Now, new tricolor national flag was adopted. Hymns in praise of the nation were popularized, and people took oath to stay united. And they also played tributes to their martyrs, people who died for the nation. A centralized administrative system with uniform laws was established. Then uniform system of weights and measures came up because in different places they used to use different types of weights and measures. So there was a lot of commotion, so uniformity was required. And internal custom duties were abolished to promote trade within the country itself. So French was promoted as a common language of the nation. Now, one thing we should keep in mind, what I have understood when we are teaching this, before the people started fighting in those days in Europe, the nations were not nation states. They were based on the monarchy, the ruler. So ruler used to conquer whichever area they wanted and bring under them. So they did not have like a nation as such. It was not like how in India we have from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from Arunachal Pradesh to Gujarat, we are one nation. We are India. But in Europe, it was not like that. A king may be ruling some areas of France, some areas of Italy, some areas of Germany. So it was based on the king. It was not based on the nation, a language or culture or anything. So there the concept, the idea of nation states was very, very different. For the first time, they brought that idea. So French revolutionaries wanted to liberate, free the people of other European countries from autocratic rulers. So the rulers were conquering different areas and they were ruling it. So they wanted to liberate them, and they started wars against other European countries for that reason. Now, students and middle class people of other European countries, initially, they were attracted by the idea of French Revolution. They supported Napoleon initially because they thought he will bring freedom to them. But later, they realized that it was not so, and they went against Napoleon. So students and middle class people of other European countries were attracted by the ideas of French Revolution. They formed clubs. They wanted to end autocracy in their countries. They wanted the monarchies to come to an end. They welcomed Napoleon's army and considered him as a liberator. They thought Napoleon will bring freedom to them. He will liberate them from this autocratic rule. And they followed Napoleonic Code. What was his code? Napoleonic Code abolished. This is very important for question. Napoleonic Code, that is the Civil Code of 1804. What did it do? It abolished privileges based on birth. Based on their birth, whatever privileges they got, they were abolished. It established equality. Everybody should be equal before law. It guaranteed right to property. It simplified administrative system, and it abolished feudal system. So all these initially, so these changes Napoleon visualized, he wanted. So initially the people of other European countries, they welcomed the French army, and they were very happy that these French army have come to liberate us. And they started calling them the liberating army. But later, they turned against the French rule. They went against them. Why? Because of the following reasons. The European nations lost their political freedom and they were taken under the French rule. Taxes were increased. Censorship was introduced and people were forced to join the French army. So later they realized that French were doing this for their own ulterior motive. Now, what were the changes introduced by Napoleon in Europe? Napoleon abolished feudal system. See, when a king comes, a ruler comes, he definitely will bring something good. Along with all the wrong things which were going to happen, good things also were brought by Napoleon. He simplified the administrative system. He abolished serfdom and gave freedom to the slaves. He introduced uniform laws, uniform currency, and uniform system of weights and measures. Manorial dues were abolished. People were not forced to pay any more dues. Transport, communication facilities were developed. Guild restrictions were removed. And Civil Code of 1804 abolished all the privileges based on birth. So what was the impact of French Revolution on other European countries? First, French Revolution spread the idea of liberty, fraternity, equality definitely to all the nations. Then Jacobin clubs were formed in different countries. Liberalism spread. People opposed, they've started fighting against absolute monarchy and the power of the nobles. Then people welcomed the French army, and because they considered them as a liberating force. Absolute monarchy was overthrown in some countries, but later people turned against the French. Why? Because they were considered as the aggressors. So next we come to how the rise of nationalism in Europe takes place. What were the political conditions under which people started fighting for their own nation state? What changes came about during the mid-18th century? So till now, there were no nation states. So first idea of forming the nation state will come from this time. So nation states did not exist in Europe during the mid 18th century, even though factories were coming up, states were becoming modern, but the nation state establishment was still not seen. So modern nations, we call them modern because a lot of modernization was taking place, industries coming, so they were becoming more advanced, but there was no nation state. So modern nations like Germany and Italy were divided into kingdom, duchies, cantons, and in Eastern and Central Europe, autocratic kings established empires in which diverse, different people were living. They all belonged to different places. There was no feeling of oneness in them. They spoke different languages. They belonged to different ethnic groups also. So a change was required. Social conditions of Europe in mid 18th century Europe. So that was a political situation. Now what was a social situation? The nobles who were landlords dominated the social life. They enjoyed all the privileges and they spoke French language. Second, the peasants constituted majority and they were tenants and small cultivators. In Eastern and Central Europe, serfdom exists, slavery was still seen. Industrial development resulted. So alongside all this, industrial development was taking place and there were two social groups, workers and middle class who were emerging. The middle class people were educated and were influenced by liberal ideas, idea of freedom, while church had lot of influence over the social life. And clergy, that is the priest, they enjoyed many privileges. So these were the social conditions of Europe in the mid 18th century. Now, main features of the class of...
Excuse me, ma'am.
1 minute, ma'am.
Vijayalakshmi here, ma'am. I have one doubt.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, duckies and cartoons na enna, ma'am? I don't know about.
Ma'am, in the book,
Yes, ma'am. Germany is divided between the kingdoms and duchies, something you said, ma'am. Cantons.
Smaller districts, we can say smaller kingdoms.
Cantons is a smaller districts, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Kingdoms, duchies,
Subdivision.
cantons. So smaller countries, their kingdoms, say Germany and Italy, they were divided into kingdoms. Smaller than were duchies and smaller were cantons. So different type of, you will have, say, rulers were ruling these places.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. So what was the main features? How were the landed aristocracy in Europe during the 18th century? Aristocracy means rich people. So what type of life they lead? How did they live during those times? So aristocracy in Europe was socially and politically, they were very powerful during the 18th century. And they owned large estates in villages and big houses in towns. They collected heavy rent, manual dues from the peasants. So all these peasants had to pay their taxes. They spoke French language and were united by a common way of life. The lifestyle was different. And their families were connected by marriage. Even marriages they had amongst themselves only. Now, impact of growth of industry. So alongside this, we are seeing the industries were developing. And what was the effect of the industries on social, economic, and political conditions in Europe? Now, growth of industries resulted in emergence of towns and cities. So new towns were coming up, new cities were coming up, and the new liberal ideas were spreading among the people of these towns and cities. A new social class called middle class who were working, who were educated, were coming up, but they were not given any privileges, and they also opposed the privileges which were based on birth. Because they were educated, they started questioning all these things. All this, it also resulted in the emergence of new group of people who were working in the factories, industries. They were called workers, and they were united in the struggle for their rights. So middle class emerges, a social group that led nationalist movement. So middle class consisting of professional, the educated people, the businessmen, the government officers, the teachers, they spearheaded, they were leaders in the nationalist movement in Europe. Now this middle class, they were educated and they supported new liberal ideas also. They wanted end to all the privileges which were given to the aristocracy. And they wanted to build a nation state. They wanted a nation to come up. Till now, there was no formation of nation states in India. In Europe. They all were based on the kings, the monarch who was ruling. They were against absolute monarchy and they supported a government based on people's consent. So they wanted a democratic government where people will give their consent to come up. So who were the liberals, if you are asked? So what does the word liberalism mean? Where did it originate from? It originated from the Latin word liber, which means freedom. So this liberal groups, they opposed absolute monarchy and they supported a government which was based on people's consent. They wanted a constitution and an elected parliamentary. They were fighting for liberalism and democracy. They did not support universal adult franchise and they wanted right to vote only for men with property. So in those days, women were not given any importance. Even when they are fighting for their rights, only the men were fighting. They did not want voting facility for everybody. And initially, they wanted voting facility only for the men who had property, means who were rich. They wanted to end the privileges enjoyed by nobles and clergy, and they supported individual freedom and equality before the law. But this was only for men with property. Then ideas of liberals in the economic front. So what did they think about the economy? So liberals, they wanted freedom of market. They wanted the government to remove all restrictions which they had put. They wanted all restrictions on movement of goods, people, capital to be withdrawn. And they demanded the abolition of internal custom duties which they had. They supported a common system of weights and measures and a national currency. They wanted uniformity. In 1934, a new custom union called the Zollverein was formed in Prussia. This abolished internal customs and duties and reduced the number of currencies. But what happened? Again, conservatism comes back. So conservatives means the people who believed in the traditional system. They wanted the old system only to continue. So conservatism, along with liberals, we see conservatism also emerge in Europe in 1815 after the defeat of Napoleon. So finally, Napoleon was removed. He was not allowed to continue. So conservatives supported traditional institutions. They believed in monarchy, church, social order, property, family. And they did not want to go to the old system of conservatives. They wanted modern ideas to be introduced to strengthen the monarchy. So they did not want to return to the pre-revolutionary days. They believed that the modern ideas would strengthen the monarchy and make it more powerful and effective. So they wanted changes to be brought in along with the conservatism. So modern army, efficient officers, and abolition of feudalism and serfdom would make monarchy stronger. So to make them strong, they wanted all these changes also to be brought about. Then comes the Treaty of Vienna of 1815. So after Napoleon was defeated, the leaders of Britain, Russia, Prussia, Australia, they all met in Vienna and signed a treaty. They wanted an end to the Bourbon dynasty. The Bourbon dynasty was re-established in France again. Now, France lost territories captured by Napoleon. So Napoleon has slowly captured many places which they had to give back. New kingdoms were set up along the boundaries of France. Netherlands was set up in the north. Prussia got territories in the west. Austria was given northern parts of Italy, and Russia got a part of Poland, and Saxony was given to Prussia. So according to the treaty, all these changes came. Now, what was the characteristics of the conservative regime set up in 1815? First, they were autocratic government. They did not tolerate criticism and opposition. They were not open. Censorship laws were strictly implemented to prevent campaigns against the government. And people were not given freedom and rights. So these were the features of conservative regimes. Now, what did the liberal nationalists do after 1815? So after 1815, the liberals worked underground. They were secretly doing their work. They set up secret societies to train revolutionaries and spread their ideas. They opposed the absolute monarchies, and they demanded freedom, liberty, and freedom. They also supported the formation of nation states. Then we have the Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini. He was born in 1807. 1813, he was sent on exile for attempting a revolution in Liguria. Now, who was he? Mazzini became a member of the secret society. He was sent on exile for trying a revolution in Liguria. He founded two secret societies, Young Italy and Young Europe. He supported the formation of nation states, and he was opposed to absolute monarchy. Metternich has called him the most dangerous enemy of our social order. That is Duke Metternich. He was the Chancellor of Austria. He was a conservative and wanted to strengthen autocratic monarchy. He hosted the Vienna Conference that prepared the Treaty of Vienna, and he played a major role in establishing conservative governments in several European countries. Now, what happened in 1830 in France? The Bourbon dynasty was overthrown by liberal revolutionaries. A constitutional monarchy was installed with Louis Philippe as its head. And revolution started in other European countries also. Belgium won freedom from Netherlands. Greece won freedom from Ottoman Empire. So slowly we see nations are being formed. So there's a very important, Metternich says, when France sneezes, all of Europe catches cold. What does this mean? This is, sometimes we give this as a question. Yes, anybody can throw light on this. What does this mean, this sentence? Uma ma'am?
Influence of France on European countries.
France was the main center of Europe that time, ma'am.
So whatever happened in France.
Whatever happened in France, it will affect all the parts of Europe.
Yes, ma'am. Correct. Thank you, ma'am. So whatever happened in France, if France catches a cold, the whole Europe catches a cold. That's a way of saying whatever happens in France, everybody else will follow.
Whatever revolution, whatever the people are made, that will reflect to other countries.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It means that the events that occur in France will have direct effect on the other European countries. So after the French Revolution of 1789, revolutionary spirit spread all over Europe. The French Revolution spread liberal ideas like liberty, fraternity, and equality among the European countries. Jacobin clubs were formed in many countries. After a revolution in France in 1830, similar revolutions occurred in Belgium, Greece, and other countries. So slowly all will follow suit. Then we have the Greek War of Independence. Now the Greek nationalists got support from Greeks living in exile and also from other Europeans. They all had sympathy towards ancient Greek culture. The poets and artists called Greece the cradle or the main. Cradle means the center of European civilization and mobilized public opinion in support of the struggle against the Muslim empire. Lord Byron collected funds and participated in the fight for freedom. And finally, the Treaty of Constantinople was signed in 1832, which gave freedom to Greece. Now, what was the role of culture in promoting nationalism? Now, culture played an important role in creating the national feelings among the people. Romanticism was a cultural movement considered a common culture as the basis of a nation. And through the folk culture like songs, poetry, folk dances, the true spirit of nationalism was promoted. So the idea of a nation was expressed through songs, stories, poems, paintings. And vernacular languages were also used to create national identity in the people. Now, Romanticism was a cultural movement that promoted national feelings. It was against the glorification of science and reason, and it gave more importance to emotions, intuitions, mystical feelings. It supported the common culture as the basis of a nation. It made use of folk tales, folk songs, folk dances to promote nationalism. And vernacular languages were also used to create the identity. Then comes economic hardship that Europe faced. So what was problems they faced economically? Now we see slowly the population is increasing. So rapid growth of population resulted in large-scale poverty and unemployment in European countries. Rural people migrated to the cities because they thought they will get help from working in the industries, which resulted in the growth of slums, poor areas. So small producers face competition from machine-made goods. Small producers face competition from the machine-made goods that were coming from England, and many small product units were closed. So in some places, aristocracy continued to be powerful and peasants had to pay feudal dues. So during the period of bad harvest, especially, food prices used to increase. Now, German unification. How did German unification take place? Now, if you see the map, expansion of Prussia, it is showing. So Prussia is here, you can see. It's not very clear. I think in the book it is more clear. So how did the German unification take place? This is the picture of Germany before the unification, Germany. In 1848, the middle class tried to build a united Germany. Now we will see slowly the countries are being formed. France is formed in Germany, Italy. So they met at Frankfurt and formed a national assembly. However, this attempt ended in a failure. Prussia took over the leadership of German unification movement. And the chief minister of Prussia was a very, very strong person, Otto von Bismarck, started efforts to build a German nation. Prussia defeated Austria, Denmark, and France in wars. And in January 1871, a united German nation was established with the Prussian king, Kaiser William I, as the emperor. Now, Otto von Bismarck, he was the architect, main person behind German unification. The efforts by the middle class to build a united Germany ended in a failure. Prussia took over the leadership of German unification movement. The chief minister of Prussia, Otto von Bismarck, started efforts to build a German nation. He succeeded in defeating Austria, Denmark, and France in wars. In January 1871, a united German nation was established with the Prussian king. Now, the efforts made by the liberal middle class for the unification of Germany. So what were the efforts? The liberal middle class met at Frankfurt and they formed the All-German Nation Assembly. On 18th May 1848, 831 elected representatives attended Frankfurt Parliament meeting in Church of St. Paul, and they drafted a constitution for a German nation with a constitution monarchy. They offered the position of king to Frederick Wilhelm, the king of Prussia. The king rejected the offer and along with other kings opposed the elected assembly. Parliament mostly consisted of middle class. They lost the support of ordinary people. And finally, the rulers succeeded in dissolving the assembly with the help of army. Now, how did Italy look before the unification? There were so many divisions there in Italy. So Italy before unification, it was divided into several kingdoms and a multinational Habsburg empire. So all these places had their separate empires which had to be removed and nations had to be formed. So during the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states. Sardinia, Piedmont was ruled by Italian king. The north was under Habsburg Empire. The center was ruled by the Pope, and the southern regions were under the domination of Bourbon King of Spain. So different rulers in different places of Italy. Italian language did not acquire common form and it had many regional variations. So they did not have a common language also. In 1830, Mazzini tried to unite Italy. He formed a secret society called Young Italy to achieve his goal, but his efforts ended in a failure. In 1848, the King of Sardinia, Piedmont, Victor Emmanuel II, took over the leadership of Italian unification movement. Cavour, the chief minister of Sardinia, started efforts to build a united Italy with the support of France. He succeeded in defeating Austria in 1859. Then armed volunteers led by Garibaldi helped Cavour to defeat the kingdom of Two Sicilies. They also got the support of local peasants. Finally, in 1861, a united Italy was established with Victor Emmanuel II as the emperor. Then we come to, so we have seen Germany, Italy, now unification of Britain. But unification of Britain was very different from others. Can anybody say why it was very different from other countries?
Because it did not fight with anybody. It forcefully
Yes.
understood that.
So no bloodshed took place. They did not have
No
any war.
revolution.
Yes. So yes, ma'am. Sabin ma'am, you want to add anything?
No, ma'am, no, no.
No, ma'am. The children should be explained about England, Britain, Great Britain,
The
UK,
difference.
now the
Yes.
present United Kingdom.
Yes, yes,
They
yes.
get confused with
why
that.
we call
So we
it
have to explain
United
the
Kingdom?
previous story.
Yes. Why
Yeah.
United Kingdom? Why not Britain? So
Oh,
when
yeah.
we say united, means it is including all the other countries also. So English, Welsh, Scot and Irish ethnic groups lived in the British Islands. So many groups were there together in Britain. In 1688, the English Parliament captured power from the monarchy. In 1707, the United Kingdom of Great Britain was formed by the unification of England and Scotland. So both came together. British Parliament was dominated by English members, and the Scots, the people of Scotland, were suppressed. They had no say in it. Ireland was forcibly taken by Britain after the failure of a revolution led by Wolfe Tone. A strong British nation with a flag, a national anthem was established, and other ethnic groups were suppressed. So this map, in fact, is there in the book. No, they may be asked, we have to explain this to the children. What is this map showing? So at the top, we see angels are carrying the banner of freedom. In the foreground, in front, we have Britannia. The symbol of British nation is triumphantly sitting over the globe, as we can see here. The colonies are represented through images of tigers, elephants, forest, and primitive people. That is what they had idea, no? India and all these colonies. They were places where all these tigers, elephants, everything was found. So the domination of the world is shown as a basis of Britain's national pride. So it is showing, this picture is showing how Britain dominated all these places. Its power. In fact, a different color is used, all the places which were dominated by Britain, these places. Now, last part of the lesson, I think, visualizing the nation. So how should we visualize the nation? In order to spread national spirit, the nationalist made symbolic personification of ideas of nation. So how we visualize the nation in India also, we have given a figure to Bharat Mata. We have a flag, same way. In those countries also, they had to visualize first. So from 1789, females appeared in paintings as symbol of liberty and revolution. The French revolutionaries created the image of Marraine. She represented French nation. In Marraine, statues were erected in public places and her images were marked on coins and stamps. Again, Germania became the symbol of German nation. She is wearing a crown of oak leaves. What does oak represent? It represents heroism. Then we have French artists. They use symbols like red cap and broken chains to symbolize freedom. They use the image of a lady with a balance in the hand as a symbol of justice. So these are the different images. They can be asked for comparison, what they are, which country they stand for, what do they signify. In fact, when we are teaching nationalism in India also, there is a comparison. One question we do in the end, comparison of figures, this allegory which they use. What is the meaning of the word allegory? Sometimes children don't understand. Shanti ma'am, what do you mean by allegory?
The images which were in female for the sake of country is known as allegory.
Yes, what they represent, right? They have
Like
visualized.
Bharat Mata.
Bharat Mata. Bharat Mata is an allegory, same way Germania is used by German. So all these are allegories which were used by the people in those times to represent the nation. The last topic is nationalism and imperialism. So how nationalism and imperialism have got intertwined. Nationalism is separate, imperialism is separate, but slowly the countries, when they gain power, how they misuse it, that we will see. Now, nationalism promoted imperialism. How? Extreme nationalism developed in Europe in the later part, in the last part of the 19th century. So nationalism lost its liberal democratic outlook and became narrow. Nationalists became intolerant to other nations. They thought they have more power and they have the capability of getting other nations under them also. So nationalists became intolerant to other nations and people. European rulers made use of nationalist feelings in order to achieve their imperialistic goals. Then growth of extreme nationalism and the fall of Ottoman Empire created conflicts and troubles in the Balkans. So in this, we will be studying about Balkans, and we will also understand what happened in the First World War. So Balkan states won freedom, and then they started fighting against each other over the question of sharing of territories. Extreme nationalism and imperialistic ambitions created several conflicts between the major European powers. All these resulted in the outbreak of the First World War. So this was the Balkan crisis and how the Balkans were a region. So what does Balkan region consist of? Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Slovenia, Montenegro. So Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, all these were part of the Balkan nation. The people of Balkans were also called Slavs. The Balkans were under the control of Ottoman Empire. The spread of romantic nationalism in the Balkans, together with the decline of Ottoman Empire, made this region very explosive. So the Balkan states declared freedom and became independent nations. And the conflict started between the Balkan states over sharing of territories. Then what comes? The interference of big European power in the Balkan issues created some conflicts. All these led to the outbreak of the First World War. Right. That brings me to the end of this topic.